Hello everyone. Um, Hopefully you've been able to join us, and we can see participants joining in numbers as we're speaking. So, as people are joining us, just want to welcome you all to this webinar, and we'll introduce ourselves. My name's Stephen Turner. I'm the program director for the Sustainable Transitions Leave Home Doctoral Training Program at the University of Essex. And I'm joined by my colleague, Zeta. So, Zeta, over to you if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Stephen. Hello, everyone. My name is Bakaki, and I am in the management team of Sustainable Transitions, and I'm also based in the Department of Government at the University of Essex.
This webinar is a webinar to give us the opportunity to talk to you, to tell you about the program, and it's also an opportunity for you at the end of the talk to ask us questions. So you'll be able to put questions into the chat or in the Q&As, and we can answer them at the end. So as we're going through the talk and through the slides, and we'll be sharing some slides in a minute. You can put questions into the chat and into the Q&A at any time, but we will answer all of them at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen now, if you'll just bear with me, and then we'll go through some PowerPoint slides which will explain more about the program. So let's just go back here. So we'll start off then, and as I've said, this is a guidance webinar, and this is for the benefit of those applicants or potential applicants for the PhD scholarships on the Sustainable Transitions Leave Home Doctoral Training Program for entry in this year, so for October 2026. We also have a master's plus PhD set of scholarships, and we're doing a separate webinar in relation to that in a few days' time. Sorry, in a couple of weeks' time. So if you're interested in the master's plus scholarships, you can attend that webinar. So in this overview, in this webinar, what we're going to do is to talk about the eligibility for the program. We're going to talk about the supervisory arrangements. We're going to talk a little bit about the university itself and what the university offers. We'll talk more about the scholarships themselves and what they offer. And we'll be giving some advice, some basic advice about how to draft a proposal. And also, we'll be talking about specifics for applying and what you need to do in relation to that. And then also how you can get in touch with us. So it's a very broad overview that we're going to provide. And as I say, you can ask questions in the chat or in the Q&As. So the program itself is a result of a grant that we have, an award that we have from the Lever Home Trust. And as you know, the title of the program is Sustainable Transitions. And the program is designed as an interdisciplinary doctoral scholarship program to train the next generation of scholars in the fields related to sustainable transitions. And so what that means is that we've developed specific projects that are interdisciplinary in nature. So they are projects that involve at least two different disciplines. So that means from a university context, two different departments or schools across the university. And for each project, the student is supervised by two supervisors from those different disciplines. And within the offerings of this current round, there are 6 different schools and departments that are working together. And the interdisciplinary requirement is a key component that is required by Leverhulme for this award, and it's a core part of the way that these PhDs and the scholarships operate. The university itself we'll talk about more as we go on, but it has world-leading expertise within the field of sustainability from a variety of different disciplines, whether that be in government, whether that be in life sciences, within business, and sociology and so forth. In terms of eligibility for this round of the scholarship applications, we're open for applicants that are international applicants or that are home applicants. And obviously, there are visa issues related to whether or not an applicant is an international applicant or whether they're a home applicant. And if you're uncertain about your status, whether or not you would be a home applicant or an international applicant, you can contact the email address which is on the screen there, which is international@essex.ac.uk, and they will be able to advise you on your status. We have 9 different project areas which are advertised. So each of these are supervisor-led project areas, which are advertised, and they're a combination of different departments and disciplines. And so if you're interested in applying, you should apply for one of those project areas. And we have 7 doctoral scholarships to offer, to grant, I should say, for the successful applicants. So that means that not all of those 9 projects will go ahead. So the program format and the format for each of these different projects is that the expectation is the applicant will come from a discipline that is aligned with the primary discipline under the project that's advertised. So, for example, if the primary discipline is EBS, so the business school at Essex, and the secondary discipline, let's say, is government, then the expectation normally is that the applicant will have a background, so an academic background in that primary discipline. It's not always the case because sometimes there are applicants that have, for example, professional experience within that primary discipline, and that can sometimes be a substitute. But normally there's an expectation that you would have that background, usually an academic background, and usually an undergraduate degree and a master's degree in that primary discipline area. It's not an expectation that you would have a background in the secondary discipline. We don't expect applicants to have a knowledge related to that other area. Training can be provided when you start your PhD by doing modules, by bespoke training in that secondary discipline. But there is an expectation that you'd have an enthusiasm and an interest in that secondary discipline so that you can develop your knowledge. And the idea is that you can then synthesize skills from both of those areas, both of those disciplines, into a combined interdisciplinary project. And so the pedagogic constraints related to that, and what I mean by that are the educational constraints that relate to doing this type of interdisciplinary research, are those really of having the capacity, and when I say the capacity, I mean the capacity of the student to be able to take on those different areas. So having a strong background in the primary discipline enables the student to be able to then combine knowledge from another discipline to develop a truly interdisciplinary approach. In terms of the administration of these degrees, as you'll probably know, all of the normal or orthodox PhDs, I should say, are administered within the departments in which the students are based. And so with the Sustainable Transitions PhDs, bearing in mind they traverse two different disciplines, they are in fact administered within the discipline of the primary discipline supervisor. So, for example, if it's primarily Essex Business School and let's say secondary discipline is government, it would be administered by the Essex Business School. So the student would be administratively within the Essex Business School. So, as we've mentioned, there are two supervisors, at least two supervisors for each each project. Sometimes there are three, and in the case of one of the projects that's advertised this year, there are four supervisors. Sometimes more experienced supervisors are combined with more junior supervisors to give that combination of expertise. And so sometimes that's the way that the supervision operates. Um, the expectation for students on the program is that they would engage with the secondary discipline from the early stages. So in the early stages of taking up taking up a scholarship and starting on the program, there would be a discussion with your supervisors to talk about your training needs within the secondary discipline. And normally it's the case that students will then undertake often master's modules, but sometimes even undergraduate modules too, to build up knowledge within that secondary discipline to be able to engage in a meaningful way in the interdisciplinary aspects of the project. So there's a development that takes place in terms of knowledge of that secondary discipline, but also knowledge of the methodological skills that are required within that discipline too. That's in addition, of course, to developing your knowledge in your primary discipline so that you can build up to PhD level. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Zeta, who's going to take us through the rest of the slides.
Thank you, Stephen. So from now, I'll talk a bit about the host institution where this doctoral training program is running, and then I will move into some discussion about the research proposal that we expect to see from our applicants. So first, this Leverhulme Trust grant opportunity has been granted at the University of Essex. That is a highly research-oriented university, meaning that all the programs that we have here are research-led. So we do expect from our PhD students to do innovative interdisciplinary research in the field of sustainable transitions. The University of Essex is ranked 17th according to the Times Higher Education globally for international outlook, and international outlook refers to the international staff, students, and research collaborators. It is also in the top 100 globally for the impact rankings for 9 UN sustainability goals. So this gives an extra weighting on our purpose through this program of sustainable transitions. The universities are also ranked through the Guardian University Guide, so the ranking their performance, and the University of Essex is ranked 12th in the 2025 ranking. Whilst it is the 25th for research and impact in the UK, and at the same time, a few departments also among those who are participating in the program are even in the top 3 for research and impact in the country. The University of Essex also has the Centre for Environment and Society, and the program of sustainable transitions closely works with the center in terms of research, seminars, collaborations, and other activities that we use or we look to participate and seek collaboration with various members of staff across the university who work on the topic of the environment. Our PhD students not only benefit from a very international environment at the University of Essex, but also they benefit financially. That is really important, next to the Leverhulme grant, and this provides up to £2,500 for additional training and conferences, and this is through the Professor funding. So with this, I will move to what specifically the Leverhulme Doctoral Training Program Scholarship offer to our students, to our PhD students. First and foremost is a training in disciplinary study, and this happens by various cohort sessions given by management team members who come from different backgrounds, research backgrounds, teaching backgrounds, and departments, disciplines. This world-leading expertise in areas of environmental sustainability is not limited only in the management team members, but also, as I said earlier, to other members of staff that we at the Sustainable Transitions work closely with. And this is shown with the 9 different projects that related to contemporary timely topics concerning sustainable transitions. And you can see those projects listed on the webpage of Sustainable Transitions. From these 9 different projects, we will recruit 7 applicants, 7 PhD students, and they will get a fee waiver, so their tuition will be paid through the Leverhulme, whilst they will also be offered a living cost stipend at the UK Research and Innovation, as it is recommended by the UK Research and Innovation, and this is about or will be a bit more than £21,000 for the upcoming academic year 2026-27. What is now extraordinary, I would say, for this grant is the research money that is offered to each successful applicant for their 3 to 4 years of studies, of doing their PhD, and this is a research allowance of £10,000 in total to be spent on a variety of activities, from research supplies, if you're working in life science and need laboratory equipment, for example, field work, running surveys, training, etc. Of course, this is in addition to the professor money, as I mentioned earlier, the £2,500 given from the university separately. We think it's very important for our PhD students to have an understanding of how research is translated into the real world. And for this reason, we talk a lot about impact, we talk a lot about policy, not only because this is what the universities want to do, but also due to the topic that we are studying, right? Studying sustainable transitions and the environment in general. For this, in collaboration with the supervisors, each successful applicant will have an independent research impact advisor. Is an individual who will be in contact with our PhD students to discuss their project, to discuss their career progress, and how this project is related to the real world, to policy, etc. We can, of course, take any questions you may have about this at the Q&A section. And at this point, I would like to give some more specific advice on how to work around the research proposal that we expect from you as part of your application. So once you have made a decision what is the project that you would like to apply, and this may be driven by your research interest, by your background, expertise, etc. Then you are asked to write a research proposal, and that is a maximum up to 1,500 words, excluding the references. This research proposal is expected to be driven by the project that you have selected, and for this reason we would like to highlight that you read carefully the proposal description, the project description, as they are shown, as they are described at the university's webpage on sustainable transitions. So derived from that, we would like to see a background literature that will show your familiarity with the existing scholarship, because from there you can show your contribution and how your research idea contributes to the existing scholarship. This will be better shown once you are able to describe clear aims and objectives. In the end, what do you want to find out within these 3 or 4 years of studies during your PhD? It is very important also to show to your potential supervisors and management team, reviewers and committee members that you can apply some research methods, the research methods that they are fit for the project that you have chosen, but also for the proposal that you are submitting. Sometimes, given the various backgrounds, and this is very much related to international students in comparison to home students, we don't expect the same level of understanding of research methods. But a PhD at the University of Essex is research-led, and therefore we have to see what you already know, but also what you could develop. There is training through the program that successful applicants will benefit from, and it is absolutely fine for our applicants to say, I am up to this knowledge, but I am open to more training. As I already mentioned, the contribution of the proposal, of the research proposal, it is a significant element because this shows your innovation, your level of innovation regarding the existing scholarship. Don't consider the contribution only at the theoretical / empirical level, but also impact, so policy related, and how can this project, what you are suggesting, can be related to the real world, what can decision makers, practitioners, policy makers can make out of this. A list of references is always a requirement for any piece of academic work, as long as your references are consistent and they show the sources that you have used. This would be absolutely fine for this research proposal. Again, I would like to highlight to familiarize yourself with the guidance for applicants document that is on the webpage, and each project's description in detail. So once you have your proposal ready and you're more than happy, you've read it many times, and even you have asked others to read it if you wish to, because imagine it has to be understood by a variety of experts, right? Academic experts on sustainable transitions. But as you've already seen, we are a management team of law department, sociology, political science, and business. So that your research proposal should be understood at a interdisciplinary level. So once you've done this, there are 2 requirements in terms of the application process. And the first is to apply for a PhD using the online application system. This means applying for a PhD at the University of Essex. Next to this, you have to apply for the scholarship per se, and for this, you need to use the Word application form and send it to the email described here on these slides. That is the sustainable ldtp@essex.ac.uk. This information is also online. Now, of course, you may wonder, okay, why do I have to apply twice? This is simply for administrative purposes, and you don't have to be concerned about the application for a PhD at the university level, but it is necessary that you're registered on the system. So keep this in mind. 2 applications are necessary. Now, there are various deadlines that you have to keep in mind through this application process. And the most important is the 13th of April. That is the deadline to apply for the scholarship. And by then, we would like to see your full research proposals and the application. From there, shortlisted applicants will be informed, and this will not take so many days. It will be only by the 29th of April that you will be informed whether you've made it to the next stage. The first round of interviews will take place between the 7th and the 19th of May, where applicants will have interviews with the supervisors of the project that they have applied. By the 21st of May, the supervisors will have made decisions about those applicants who can go to a second round of interviews, and that will take place between the 27th of May and the 9th of June, where these interviews will be with members of the management team of the Sustainable Transitions program. By the 26th of June, all problems with all of your concerns and worries will be sorted, because you will know whether you have made it to the program, and you will be notified about the application process. So now, should you have any questions, please do email either the administrative office, or if you have questions about your status in terms of international or home, do reach out to the university, who are able to advise about visa, etc. Information. Also, I suggest that you follow our social media page. That is a LinkedIn page where we are sharing information and reminders about our application deadlines and information about the projects, and also the progress of our current cohort. So you can go through the page and see what our current students, PhD students, have been up to, and you can learn through their work what actually the doctoral training program on sustainable transition is. So with this from me and this presentation, and we're then looking forward to your questions. I can see already some on the chat.
So thanks, Zeta. Yes, so we come to this point now, which is an opportunity for you all, if you have any questions, to put them into the chat or into the Q&A. I can see that we got, as Zeta said, we got questions in both, so we'll refer to both. As we've got more in the chat, we'll go to the chat first, but don't worry, we'll go through all of them. So we'll start off. I'll just open this up now and start at the top. So Mike Phillips says, will the slides be shared with attendees? What we'll be doing is we'll be putting the recording of this webinar onto the web page, the Sustainable Transitions web page. So the recording will be available, and that has the slides on it, but we don't put the slides up separately. So that's the first question. So Zeta, do you want to take the next one there?
Yeah, we can do it like this. So Emilia is asking whether the final doctoral degree be from both departments. If somebody is interested in a program that involves supervision of the accounting and law departments, where the program, well, the certificate ultimately will name both departments. The certificate will name the primary department. The certificate will say that you have a PhD in accounting in this example you're giving, Emilia.
Okay, so thank you. So the next question is from Abhishek. Are you going to share the deck? What does that mean? Zeta, can you help me with that? What are you going to share the
I believe
deck?
it refers to the recording and slides
Yes,
that
so
you've
so
already
yes, we're going to share that if that's what that means. So thank you very much for that. Um, And Faith has the question, can one do more than one project? I assume that means can you apply for more than one project? Zeta, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, you can apply for more than one project. My advice is to pay more attention. Start with one. Start thinking that you want to apply for one and make sure that you excel that research proposal. As long you have finished with that and you are happy with your submission, then you can look at another. And my advice with this is that you don't submit to half-made research proposals.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have another question from uh, Damilola, Babatunde. So thank you for your question. It's what if the applicant only has academic background in sustainability and environmental management and not background in the primary disciplines such as business or accounting? Um, Yes, it's a good question. To what extent does somebody's background and discipline need to be aligned with the project area? Normally, there's an expectation of a reasonably close alignment with the project area because the project will be within that specific discipline with a secondary discipline, and the expectation is that the applicant is at a good level within that disciplinary area, that primary disciplinary area, so that they can then develop to PhD level in that area. And then normally the route to do that is from having an undergraduate degree and a master's degree normally in that field. Sometimes we find that a person's background is actually quite closely aligned anyway, even though formally they're not aligned through an orthodox degree and master's degree set of qualifications. And so if you felt that your qualifications and experience were aligned enough to a specific project, then we would welcome an application from you. So the next question
Yeah, the
is,
next one, yeah, Zania Warren, who is asking whether somebody can apply for more than a project by separate application. So if somebody is applying for a second project, we would therefore expect an additional application from scratch. And whether is allowed to apply for both at master's and PhD level. So I suppose by this you are asking whether you could apply for the PhD projects, but also for the Master Plus project. Note here that the Master Plus project eligibility criteria are different from the eligibility criteria we have for the PhD recruitment. And by this, and one and most important is well, not most important, but one that may limit somebody's options is that somebody who already has a master degree cannot apply for the Master Plus PhD applications. Now, Stephen, I have actually, I would like to add something to this, and perhaps you can help me here. Because somebody who may not have a master a master degree would possibly apply for a PhD, and that's okay. So would that be also okay for a person to apply for the master's and PhD projects, assuming that they meet the other eligibility criteria?
Sorry, yes, somebody who doesn't have a master's can potentially apply for one of the PhD projects. Um, Although the normal expectation is that somebody would have a master's
Hmm?
degree as well. But if they have, for example, additional experience or they're particularly their undergraduate degree is particularly focused, for example, their interest particularly focused through their study on the area, then they can potentially put forward a strong application. And certainly we would encourage applicants to do that. The other part of your question, Zeta, was what? Can you
Yeah, now
elaborate?
considering that this very same individual, of course, they don't have a master's degree.
Yeah.
So would they be able to apply also for the Master Plus?
Yes, absolutely. If they don't have a master's degree, then if there are particular projects that the individual felt that were applicable for them, that they were interested in, then yes, we would encourage them, very much encourage them to apply.
Just in case that this is what our question was about here. Thank you.
So the next one is this necessary to have supervision confirmation before starting application? Um, so yes, Shakila, it's a good question. No, this isn't an orthodox application process in the way that applicants often apply for PhDs. So often, sorry, and with other types of scholarship programs. So for example, if you take the Chase and SENS scholarship programs, which are programs that Essex is involved with. It's necessary with those programs to apply to get the support of supervisors before you then apply for the scholarship. And it doesn't work like that with sustainable transitions. Um, what you do is you just fill in your proposal and your application on your PhD application, and then you fill in your proposal and the rest of the details on the scholarship application, and you submit those. And then that's all that's required. You don't need to liaise with supervisors in advance. You can liaise with supervisors if you've got specific questions that you want to ask. But as we say in the guidance, there's only very limited guidance that they will be able to give you because we need to have fairness across all applicants. So they may, for example, discuss with you your eligibility in terms of your background and so forth, those kind of things, and talk to you more about what the project is about. But they're not able to give you specific support with your application as such. So that's that one. Zeta, over to you for the next one.
I think the next one is from Kesha Braspand, and well, good afternoon to you too. And I don't see necessarily a question here, but if you do have one, please do message or email if you prepare. And thank you for listening and participating to this webinar, Kesha.
Thank you. So there's one from Lookman. Is one PhD application to the University of Essex enough for those applying to more than one project? Um, Lookman, no, you would need to put in separate PhD applications because on the PhD application you need to include your proposal as well. So you need to put in separate PhD applications as well as separate scholarship applications. Um, so that's that one. So
I think Keshab is putting now their question on the next message, and that's great. Um, they're asking for eligibility criteria for the PhD program, and based on what you described earlier, Keshab, this looks fine. But then you're asking whether it would be possible to pursue this research within the economics department and receive a PhD in economics. So these project proposals are tailored to specific disciplines, specific departments, and specific supervisors. So there is no flexibility in doing one of these projects with a department that is not described on the project proposal.
Okay, thank you very much to Keshab for that one. So we have a question from Hillary to build expertise in the first primary discipline. Would it be advisable to undertake the MSc and PhD joint program if the prospective candidate has little or no background in the primary discipline? Um, yes, if you have limited um, uh, limited experience in the primary discipline, it may be difficult for you even to apply for the master's plus PhD program, because there's an expectation with the master's plus PhD program that the applicant would normally have degree level education in the primary discipline for that. So what I would advise you to do is to look at your background and expertise and see which projects uh, your background and expertise most closely aligns with in terms of the primary discipline, and then see if you're interested in applying for that or those projects. That would be my advice to you in that sense. Um, so the next one is Samuel.
Yeah, Samuel is asking whether they can have part-time jobs due to the high cost of living in the UK, and I very much appreciate this question, in fact. But I would like I'll ask Stephen's advice, but I would like to highlight something first, that it is a training program that does require a lot of focus. So although I appreciate the high cost and that they may be needed to look for additional jobs, then I would advise to try and stay in the field. So if, for example, there is a research position, or if there is a teaching position, like a graduate teaching assistant or a lab assistant, this is something that we would normally encourage students. And this is not to lose focus from the education aspect. And that's where I need Stephen's help. There are some limitations, especially for those students who are on visas. Stephen?
Well, actually, not specifically a
Okay.
visa issue. The expectation is that the Sustainable Transitions doctoral students will be full-time. That's the expectation. And the stipend that's awarded is the standard UKRI stipend, which is regarded as being sufficient for an individual to support themselves in terms of housing and living and food expenses, those types of normal expenses. So the stipend is actually a decent stipend, and certainly it's sufficient for somebody to be able to survive reasonably well on that. And in addition, as we've explained, there is the additional research funds, which means that um, a student doesn't need to dip into their own stipend to support themselves in terms of, for example, going to conferences, in terms of, for example, doing field work, because there's those additional research funds available for that. So certainly, number one, there is the expectation that the students are full time. And secondly, the stipend normally should be sufficient. Some students do end up getting additional jobs. So, for example, some of our current sustainable transition students have lecturing jobs at other universities that they've taken up in addition. But normally, where a student takes on additional work, there's an expectation, there's a discussion about that with the supervisory team to see whether or not it's feasible. the amount of work that's going to be done under whatever contract it is, and whether or not that will have a negative impact upon the student's progress for the PhD. And in terms of any visa issues, going back to the original point, then in terms of getting work, whether if a student is on a student visa, then you can write to the international at essex.ac.uk for any advice relating to visas and permission to work and that type of thing. That's something that I don't have the expertise in, to be fair. So that's one. So we have another one from Kemi there. So is there any requirement to make contact with the primary supervisor before the submission of my research proposal? Kemi, no, there is no requirement for that. You can do if you wish. There are normally quite a few applications for these, so there isn't the expectation that everyone applies, makes contact with the primary discipline supervisor, and certainly ultimately all applications are viewed and reviewed on their merits. So it wouldn't make any difference to your application if you did or you didn't. So Zanya?
The next question. Yeah, exactly. So they say I have graduated PhD, but not in the UK. But not an award and whether they're still eligible. This is no problem. You can apply for the PhD program. The only issue with degrees and eligibility is for the other Master Plus PhD. Those scholarships have a clear criteria that the applicant cannot have already a master's degree, because this is to give more opportunities to those who don't have the master's degree training.
Yep, thank you very much. So a question from Aizal. Thank you very much for the informative webinar. I have a question regarding the timeline of the program. Since the scholarship decisions will be finalised by the end of June, could you kindly advise on the expected start date for the PhD? As an international applicant, I would also like to understand whether this timeframe would normally allow sufficient room for visa processing, or if previous international students have experienced any timing challenges. Sometimes, yes. So as we said, the outcomes for successful applicants will be informed by June 26th, I think was the date that we've provided, but it's on the website. So it's towards the end of June. And that does mean sometimes the process of a student getting themselves ready for October, which is when the term starts, there can be a lot to do within that time frame. And so the expectation is that on receiving advice that your application has been successful, the scholarship is being awarded, that you would then need to start that process quite quickly. But in terms of if, for example, there were delays because of visas were delayed, we're understanding in relation to that, and we support students. For example, if it's going to be a week late or 2 weeks late that you arrive because of the visa issues, or even if it's longer, we will work with you. We understand that happens. It happens for other PhD students in the past, and it will happen for other PhD students in the future. We know these things happen, so we work with the student. We want them to be successful, so we support through that process, and we know what it's like with visas. So don't worry too much about that. It's something that we understand.
So the next one, Balawal Ali Navas is asking whether we could also could explain more the primary and secondary area. So an interdisciplinary project is called interdisciplinary because they synthesize two disciplines. Now, for administrative reasons, we have to call one discipline part primary and one secondary, because as we said earlier, the student will be having as a home department the one that is the primary discipline. Now, this is only for administrative reasons. The in practice, there should be no difference between the two disciplines, and the two disciplines should be synthesizing the research proposal of the applicant, and therefore the PhD dissertation, the PhD thesis that we see in the end. So for now, for the application process, what you have to keep in mind is the expertise that we are asking. And this is because we are looking to give some additional training to that discipline that the applicant doesn't already have. We don't expect that we have applicants that come here with expertise in two disciplines, in two different fields. This is why you need to take into account, okay, what have I done for my bachelor degree? What have I done for my master's degree? And how can I explore this further in an interdisciplinary PhD project?
Yes, so yeah, that's right. And I'd just add to that to say that there isn't the expectation, as I think we mentioned before, that applicants have training in that secondary discipline. It's not normal for applicants to have a high level of knowledge, but there just needs to be that willingness and that interest to learn that secondary discipline and to be able to develop their knowledge and skills. And sometimes that is learning something from scratch. So the applicant needs to be prepared and open to going to classes, developing their knowledge, and then developing their capacity to build that into their PhD. So the next question is from Aomide, and this is: what if you have an undergraduate degree in the primary discipline but a master's in a different field that is still within the same area? That's normally fine. We get lots of different combinations, and certainly if you have an undergraduate degree in the primary discipline, that's usually a sufficient basis to be able to build on to go forward with a PhD. And if your master's degree is in a slightly different field, sometimes that can even be beneficial. So we'd encourage you to apply. So the next one is Sumit.
If the applicant has little knowledge about the primary discipline through modules studied in previous education, but is from a different education background and have interest in the primary discipline. I'll have to read this again. I got a bit
So I think so I think what Sumit is saying is that if they don't have knowledge of the primary discipline, and is it still are they still eligible to apply? If there's little knowledge of the primary discipline, it can be very difficult because there's training that you do when you do a degree or a master's degree in that area, which trains you in the language that's used, in the methods that are used, the types of analysis that are used. And it's very difficult to go from just having an interest in an area, a generic interest, and then to take that to PhD level. Because normally with education, it's a system of building up gradually and then getting up to that level. And it can be too steep a learning curve to go from just an interest right up to PhD. But if you have, I think we were saying this earlier on, that if you have an educational background in an area that is related to one of the primary discipline areas where there are projects advertised, we'd encourage you to look at those where your educational background aligns more closely with a primary discipline, and then consider whether or not you'd like to apply for that.
Yeah, it also depends what is the primary, the previous education that may not be considered the same as primary. If somebody has economics and then here the primary discipline is in business and is accounting, for example, perhaps the modules that somebody did in economics are not very different from accounting. So this is also something to take into consideration. Think a bit critically. And with this, I'll take the next one from Shwana, who says they have a Master of Science in Project Management and Masters in Zoology. And this again depends for what your project you would be interested in applying. So from if there is something in business and life sciences, for example. So if you were to ask me if this is a good fit for government and business, I would say probably not, because you don't have the background in political science. But depends what project you are looking at applying.
Yeah, yeah, you don't want to rule yourself out, but also it's important to be realistic as well. So we'd encourage you to look at all of the different projects and see which ones you may potentially be able to apply for. So there's Nanditha. Wanted to seek clarification regarding my current admission status. If I have already received PhD for one research project, would it be possible to apply for a different project, such as a sustainable leverage project, under the same admission and change it? Or would a separate application be required? I'm not quite sure.
The way I understand is that assuming they are already admitted to one of the projects, whether they would be able to change it. That's how I understand this question. But I would ask Nanditha to clarify, please, the question.
Maybe if you'd like to send me an email, Nanditha, and just explain a little bit more detail, then be happy to respond to that. If there's a query relating to, certainly you can apply for uh, 2 different projects if you've already got, if you're already admitted for a PhD and you have a place as a PhD student at the university, you could apply still for sustainable transitions. I think all we would ask you to do is to inform the administration and the supervisor that you're applying for another one too, just so there's clarity. Because sometimes if there's more than one PhD application from students, it can get confusing in the system slightly. So Shabiha, Zeta, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so they say I hold an LLM in business law from an Indian university and the second master of laws in international legal studies from the United Kingdom. And as an international student residing in the UK, I'm seeking guidance on which degree to utilize for my application. Well, you would, considering that you already have a master's degree, you would only be able to apply for the PhD project, so for the PhD scholarships. Now, if you're asking for what project proposal, this is a very difficult question for us to answer because it should be related to your interests. And this is something that gives me an opportunity to highlight that the primary and secondary discipline and how does your profile fit in the projects that we are advertising is a very important aspect, because not only you are expected to write a proposal, that means your knowledge will be reflected on this proposal, but assuming that this is accepted, you have to spend the rest 3 to 4 years of your life working on this proposal and working on this topic. So it should be something that you are really interested, really motivated from, rather than what am I a good candidate for? With this background and several backgrounds, because there are project disciplines overlapping between law, business, and life sciences and law. Choose the one that you like the most to work, because this is the one that you will write the best proposal on.
Okay, thank you. I can see we've got a lot of messages here, so we'll have to sort of run through these as quickly as possible. And there's one from Edwin Joy here. If these are specific messages related to your qualifications and your eligibility, it may be better if you send an email to the supervisory team rather than sending them
Mm.
in the chat to us here, because it's difficult for us to comment on individual projects. Um, and it may be that the supervisory team can give you advice as to whether or not your background and your qualifications fit. This one is a question from Edwin. So thank you, Edwin, for this. And you have a background in international relations uh, and have a master's in political science. You don't say anything about your undergraduate degree. Certainly, the unilateralism and multilateralism project is a primary discipline law. And so there's a question there as to whether or not you have sufficient legal background to deal with the legal aspect. And I would advise you to um, send an email to Jessica Lawrence, who's the supervisor for that one. So we'll move forward with the next question. So one of the questions of the form we need to submit with the proposal is about how we are going to get funding after 4 years. I would like more information to understand the question better. Maybe I'll just deal with that one. So that's a question which is on all PhD which we're required to put on there for sort of regulatory reasons. And the reason for that is that the scholarship lasts for 4 years, and occasionally, not very often, but sometimes students need more than 4 years. So that there is clarity of understanding between the university and the applicant, this question is put there so that there is complete clarity about the length of time that the funding will last for. Um, so uh, Often the applicants say, well, I will, you know, find whatever resources from whatever sources, but it's really up to you how you answer that question. Ultimately, it's not a question which will determine whether or not your answer to that question is not one which will determine whether or not you're successful or you're not successful. It's more of a regulatory question that's put on from the university's perspective to ensure that there's understanding that the funding is only for 4 years. So I hope that helps to explain that particular one. Um,
Then they asked, Palawal asked which department or subject name will be written on the final degree, and that is the department of the primary discipline.
um, okay, so thank you, Bilawal. Tosin says our stipends taxed. Oh my goodness. I'm pretty sure they're not. Zeta, they're not taxed, are they?
What you see there should be your final. They have already been, because it's also very low income, so it would be on that category that is not, but I don't feel comfortable saying this 100%.
Yeah, so send me an email and we'll just answer that question. I'm pretty sure they're not, but I hate to give financial or tax advice in this context. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to do so without being 100% sure. Uh, so um, so do you want to take the next one,
Yeah,
Jessica?
yeah, there's Oliver D. Moore says, I have a Bachelor of Science and Master of Science in Environmental Management, and whether they can apply for the project on circular economy. As long as you have an interest in political science, I would say that is absolutely fine.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. And then there's another one for Balawal. Project titles are already defined. Proposed research topic should be exactly the same. Yeah, so the project area title is provided. So the projects are supervisor led in the sense that there's a design there already. But within that, there's sufficient scope within any of these projects for the applicants to develop their own project, to develop their own specific take on it. And what's expected within the proposal is that you develop and explain how you would develop that project within the scope of what's already explained within the project area. And normally there's a lot of scope for individuals to express how they would like to develop the project itself. Um, so next one I think is Hillary.
Yeah, they're asking whether previous publications in said fields necessary in applying for this project, and would that affect the outcome of an application for a prospective applicant? So if I understand this correct, do you, Hillary, mean whether there are already outputs on the proposal you are suggesting or you're planning to suggest? There will always be, if this is the question, and we don't, I mean, we do want innovation. We don't want you to address a topic that has been previously published, right? It has to be something completely new, but there will always be publications and outputs that they are close or that they are related or that they are complementary to what you are suggesting. If I understand this question correctly, again.
And if the question is it necessary for the applicant to have previous applications, then no, it's not necessary if that is the question. It's not necessary for applicants to have published in the field. So we'll move on to the next question, which is Shawana.
I think we addressed this already. It's a repetition.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll move on to the next
But
one.
please do email us, Wana, if something has been unclear. Please do that.
Joseph says, please could you re-clarify? I must have missed your answer. Can I make more than one application? The answer to that is yes, you can. You can apply to more than one for more than one project. It has happened in the past. It doesn't happen very much, but sometimes you have applicants that have skills in different areas and they want to apply for different projects. It doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. So Alessandra Parfumi.
Yes, or they are asking about, again, not having the education in the primary discipline. So I don't want Alessandra to discourage anyone from not applying, because as you say, you have some knowledge, you have expertise, and you can create this knowledge background on the primary discipline without a BA, without a master's degree. So we do encourage you to apply nonetheless. It's not an eligibility necessarily criteria, but having education in a primary discipline simply facilitate you writing a proposal that is fit for purpose.
Yes, so if you have professional experience, especially as you've indicated there, work experience, then that can be particularly helpful and sometimes can be seen as a substitute for that primary discipline training. Um, so the next one is Abhishek. With reference to the application guidance document, could you please confirm that English language requirements are not required for the application process? So there is an expectation at the university that there is English language requirement. That's part of PhD requirements at the university. So you would need to comply with that as part of your PhD application. So the next question is
I
Nandi.
think, yeah, she's, or they, sorry, apologies. So they are, they, it's a clarification, an earlier question, whether they are already admitted in a program and then they change. So if you're already admitted on a project through sustainable transitions, it means that we have closed the circle of recruitment, and it means that all projects have finalized, and we have allocated PhD students to other projects, and this doesn't give us flexibility to switch students around, I'm afraid. Yeah.
So thank you for that. Then there's thank you for your support. My question is on language requirements. Is it allowed to submit the application without the language certificate? And if it is successful to get a conditional offer and submit the certificate later, I will. I I don't know the answer to that question actually. Zeta, do you know the answer to that question, or whether or not somebody can work on the basis that they will get the certificate? Certainly.
It is a requirement for the university.
Mm,
So if this is not fulfilled, there will be then we will get a red flag basically with sustainable transitions, because it is a requirement. And it may be theoretically that you need one of these language requirements, but it also shows somebody's capacity in working in an English environment.
Okay, so thank you very much. There's one from Daniel says, again, this is a question really, I think probably Daniel, it's better for you to write to the supervisors for that particular project and then discuss your academic qualifications and whether or not they would or could qualify you or make you a good fit for that particular project. That's probably the best one, best advice for that one. Then there's a question from Molly Cooper.
I
Hi.
think it's exactly the same, whether somebody's backgrounds are fit for a
Yeah,
project proposal. It depends on the supervisors.
yeah, yeah. So please write to the supervisory team and they'll be happy to get back to you. So Oh, thank you, Parissa. So, and then Amelia says, thank you for the answers. I have one more question. My formal background is both bachelor and master's degree in law, and the project I'm interested in has primary discipline in accounting. However, the specific theme of the project is very aligned to my academic publications and work experience more than other projects that have law as primary discipline. Am I still not recommend? Yeah, with that one, Amelia, just please write to the supervisors because sometimes especially when there is, as you say, there's alignment in terms of your academic publications. That could well be enough to ensure that you're a fit for that type of project. So please do write in and we can clarify that one. So thank you very much, Shahiba. Thank you, Shabiha, for your comment there. Farzan, Zeta, do you want to
Yeah,
take?
similar answer here. Again, Farzan, please do reach out to the potential supervisors or to the project supervisors and ask there directly whether they would think your background is a good fit. Yeah.
Okay, so Mike, thank you to you for your comment. Thank you, Alessandra. Thank you, Zania. And then Kemi, does the language requirement still apply to students that had their master's study in the UK? To be honest with you, I'm not sure about the language requirements. I know there are language requirements, and so it's either a question of contacting the university, making a separate inquiry in relation to that, and inquiring. You can inquire through us through the Sustainable LDTP, and we can forward that to the right people and get the right answer to you. But to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure exactly what the requirements are there, and I don't know
So
if Zeta is able to.
also those certificates, they last for a while. So if you did your master's, for example, in 2024, that should still be okay for you to study, enroll in 2026. They have some durability, but again, please do email us. So we have a look at the Q&A box, Stephen.
Yep. So do you want to take the first one there?
First one from Mike about the slides. We spoke about this, and then I will go to Rakian. Um, First question, applicants who are currently resident in the UK, spouse visa, but classified as overseas for teaching purposes. There's no problem with this because this round is for both UK and international students. Right, so there's no limitation this round, Rakian, so you can apply.
Yeah. If you're concerned about your visa situation, please speak to the international office at international@essex.ac.uk. And we're not really qualified on visa matters, so we can't speak in more detail about that. But certainly, there's no problem for you to apply for the Sustainable Transitions Program. So thank you. Um, that's the same question, isn't it? Same
No,
person.
so it's same person, but second question about the background, and there again, Rakian, I would say do email the supervisors, feel free to email me. I am a part of the circular economy project, and we can better talk about your background if you have any doubts whether you would be a good fit. As we said earlier, we do encourage people to apply as long as they have some knowledge on the topic, even if this comes from practice, from work experience, for example.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. And there's another question from Hakshran, who says that they already have an offer for a PhD in government, but couldn't secure funding. Do you need to submit a new application for sustainable transitions? Yes, this would be a separate application if you want to seek funding for this. And you can't, unfortunately, apply for funding through sustainable transitions to fund the project that you've already applied for and that you have a place for. You'd have to apply separately for one of the projects that are advertised. So you'd have to look at that, see if there's one of them that you would be interested in studying, and then you would apply for that, and then you would not be able to then apply the scholarship to your existing PhD offer through the Department of Government. So if there is one that's of interest to you, we'd very much encourage you to apply. So the next question is from Shawana. So Zeta, do you want to take this one again?
Yeah, again, this is another question on good fit of education background with the project proposals. This is best to discuss with the supervisors. I want to highlight once more that the proposal really plays a significant role. And your education background, all elements that you all have been saying through, even the fact of having degrees with distinctions and in very interesting topics, this will facilitate you writing a good proposal, a good, exciting proposal. So do feel confident. I do encourage you to feel confident because this will also show on your writing of this proposal the confidence and the passion you have about this topic.
So anonymous, is there any requirement to make contact with a primary supervisor before submission? Yeah, we mentioned this before. There's no requirement to contact the primary discipline supervisors before applying. You can do so. There's a limited amount of information that they'll be able to give you because they need to be fair to all applicants. And so you can do so if you wish, but it won't prejudice your application if you don't at all in any way whatsoever. And then Rakian has another question. Apologies, I have another extra question. I was also wondering how the DTP supports doctoral researchers in gradually building an independent research profile, particularly for those who may wish to pursue postdoctoral fellowships or lectureships afterwards. Thank you very much in advance. Zeta, do you want to take that one?
We are offering training to our PhD students that is unique from most PhD programs to the extent that it is not a taught program, it's a research program, but we go through various processes with our PhD students in giving these experiences, from how to do a presentation, on how to write papers fit for publications, and from simple things to more advanced things. Our students have experience through academic conferences organized also by the Sustainable Transitions program, but also we give the incentives and we encourage them to participate in other events where they can show their research. So this is really a discussion with the supervisors beyond the efforts of the program overall, beyond the training of the program. but we do encourage people to work in academia and to stay in academia if they wish to. But oftentimes, of course, they may take different pathways, and this is absolutely fine, considering also the job market and what is expected out there, right? So this is something that it is part of our doctoral training program.
Yes, I'd add to that and support what Zeta has said. Just to echo that, we very much encourage all the students to engage in conferences, to speak at conferences. The funding that's there allows the students on the program to go to conferences, to build their networks. We encourage them to publish where appropriate. And that's something that we, keep a record of, which is part of the program itself. And so, and also there are opportunities for the students to develop their skills. So, for example, we have an annual conference and the students will present at the annual conference. And that's part of developing their skills to be able to go on and forward with their academic career if they wish to at the end. But even if they don't wish to take up an academic career, those skills are transferable skills which they will take into whatever career they decide ultimately to go into. So answer is yes, very much to that one. So Shawana,
Yeah,
um,
that's from an earlier because I see this question is from 133 and this has been already addressed.
do you want to take the next one, the
Yeah,
anonymous one?
yeah, it's about an anonymous participant here says the requirements is a 2-1 and there is a 2-2. They have a 2-2 due to some circumstances recovered with a 75% in their master's degree in law. Um, so I believe that 2-2 is from an undergrad degree, and then the 75 is from a master's degree. I'm not very sure.
Yeah, so I think with that one, I just encourage you to write to the supervisory team again with that one. And, if somebody, we have all different combinations of applicants with different background experience, different degrees. And so please just write into the supervisory team or into myself, and we can answer that, giving a bit more detail at which project that you're interested in applying for. So Shawana, okay, so thank you, Shawana, and
No, I
um,
think that should be it,
I
Stephen.
think that's it. So, and then there's one more in the chat, is there? So let's just open that up. Um,
Eduardo, yeah. As PhD applicant, is it advisable to highlight in my CV any scientific publication on manuscripts submitted for review? I would think yes. Anything that is of relevance, um, that that would be really useful to be shown in your CV.
Okay, so thank you everyone for those great questions. Um, Sometimes it's in answering the questions that we get to say all of the things that really can come out in a session like this for everybody else. And it's a pleasure for us to be able to answer and speak to you in person in this way, as well as being able to communicate by uh, by email and so forth. So I think overall we'll put this recording onto the website. So this will be there if anybody wants to recap over it. Um, there was one
There's
hack,
somebody,
hack.
Stephen. Yeah.
So Hack has come up with a question. I was like, sorry, my internet was not working. So Hack, if you have a question, if you want to put it into the chat now, we're happy to answer that before we close. But if you want to send an email to one of us afterwards, then that's absolutely fine. So please do feel free to put something in the chat now. Um, we'll be we'll be coming to will be, let's just see if there's,
Okay, they will be sending an email.
okay.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. So I think we're going to draw to a close now because there's no other questions in either the Q&A or the chat. It's been a pleasure for us to interact with you. We really look forward to receiving your applications as they come through. We look forward to reading them. It's always a nice process to read through all the interesting ways that applicants are considering the different projects. So we look forward to that. And as we say, if you have any other questions, please do get in touch. We're always happy to answer queries as and where we can. We can't give detailed advice about how you should apply, what should be in your proposal, but we're certainly very, very willing to answer, all the generic and practical questions related to the scholarship. So, Zeta, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we close?
Just be inspired from the projects and make sure that you like what you are writing to work on, because then it shows much nicer. It works much better than thinking very narrowly, am I a good fit? So don't be so stressed about the fit to the project as much as you love the research that you're going to undertake. That's my last point. Thank you.
And maybe just one last point, one final tip from me. When you're writing something, your proposal is an academic piece of work, and you're expected to reference it. So make sure you reference well. Make sure you put in good references, good academic references to your work, to ensure that everything you're saying stands on solid ground. So I think we'll draw to a close now. Thank you very much for all your attention, and we look forward to hearing from you.